Hi, my name is Jake Mezrahi, and I'm an artist. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a series of my paintings titled Never Again, based on the Holocaust and the events leading up to the Holocaust and some afterwards. So this started back in 2007, inspired by hearing several Holocaust survivors speaking over a couple of months. It triggered a series of emotions and research that led to these several paintings that I'm going to explain today. So the first one you see here, okay, actually is based on an event titled Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, which took place, if you look in the smoke rising in the painting, in November 10th, 1938, which actually took place or started that day or the night of and continued for several days. And this became kind of the known day that the events leading to the Holocaust in Germany and Europe pretty much began. This is a particular very famous synagogue that was burnt down that night. Okay, and this is actually based on a real photograph, as many of these paintings are. And the synagogue, as it's burning, the flames you could see across here, and the date 11/10/38 comes up in the smoke to remind us of several things. One, that didn't happen so long ago. The events of the Holocaust less than 100 years ago, and it basically is supposed to give us a impression of the idea of what happened and the people that it affected. So this painting was also made around the same time. Okay, I think I was working on these actually at the same time. This was also inspired by a real Holocaust picture of a man who was being tortured in some of the experiments in the concentration camps, or Dr. I can't pronounce his name so well, but one of those the death doctors who did very terrible medical experiments on not only Jewish Holocaust victims, but other people that led to a lot of pain. So you can see in this picture it's somewhat distorted. If you look up close, you could see I added tears into the expression of the man's face. I don't know his name. It did not say it in the photograph that I used to base the picture on. So again, this was made in 2007, and these were the first two that I started with, and then continued researching, and different pictures stood out to me, and that's why I created them. So again, this is the only one out of this series really with a face in it. After this one, which was really I think the first one I started, I wanted to avoid people and try to express what happened in the Holocaust in other ways, because sometimes people can be turned off, unfortunately, by seeing an image like this of somebody suffering directly. But when you look at a building burning, you still get the idea that somebody was suffering and that something terrible happened, but you're more open to looking into it maybe. So this painting, which I actually showed you first, okay, I'll move these. So you can focus on this one. This painting was created very shortly afterwards. I started it in approximately 2008, and I completed it in 2009. So this is also based on a real photograph of a menorah that's sitting in a window where the family who owned this menorah and who lived in this place was across from the Nazi headquarters. You could see the Nazi flag hanging right across the street from them, and they had their Hanukkah menorah as it's supposed to be placed in your window, but in many ways put them in danger. They were being, as some people call it, standing up and not hiding, being proud of who they are in spite of the fact that there was danger to them. Some people may argue that that is wrong to do, and that's part of the discussion of looking at a painting like this, is deciding, what was really going on. This menorah actually, I researched a story as I was making the painting, actually survived the Holocaust. This, I think, occurred before actually the war started. This was in the pre-war Germany, so many of these paintings, again, in the beginning, were before. They were showing what happened in the early days. So at this time, the Jews had not been rounded up yet. It was still during the era of the Nuremberg laws. So this menorah made it to Israel and is now in a museum there. On my website, I have linked the story of the menorah, which I believe it said the family each year brings the menorah home and uses it for Hanukkah and then returns it back to the museum. So what I changed in this image is, obviously you can see the whole painting is black and white, and the menorah is now blue. Why is it blue? Because the menorah is supposed to symbolize bringing light into the world, bringing light into darkness, bringing light, spiritual light, positive energy into the world. So I made the menorah bright and made it stand out from all the darkness around it and behind it that was the Holocaust. Also, I chose the color blue, and it's a blue and white tint, clearly to represent the state of Israel, which the flag is represented by blue. Many cities in Israel have blue as their theme color, like Sfat. So blue is on the tzitzit. There are many different symbolisms with the color blue and the state of Israel, or the Jewish people, the people of Israel. So this blue was chosen specifically for that purpose. So after this painting, next painting I chose to do was, as you can see, a pile of glasses. Okay, so this was meant to represent the number of people who were killed in the Holocaust. And, it's not a perfect picture of glasses, and also I've added, if you look very closely, in a few places, particularly right over there, okay, in the glasses, some eyes that are crying. Tears, and you can look at that in many different ways. It's the victims, the families today who still cry, the people today who still cry, the people today who are still being killed in many different ways, tortured, killed for who they are, for what they believe in, for their rights. Okay, so this is more than just about the Holocaust, that it took place in those years. It's just about really all of history where people have been killed or tortured for who they are. Okay, and as you could see, this pile of glasses, where did this pile of glasses come from? Every Jewish victim they killed in the Holocaust, in the gas chambers, that were shot, that were murdered, that were tortured to death, they took their belongings and they were going to sell them. They were going to put them in a museum. This was all planned out. They had at the end of the war, you could see there were piles of glasses, there were piles of hair, piles of clothes, piles of suitcases, piles of even toothbrushes and shoes that they were going to somehow reuse to make money off of, based on the victims that they stole all these things from. So this, again, it shows you just the amount of people. This is clearly not 6 million pairs of glasses, but there's a lot. And each one of these glasses represent the people who were killed. So after this painting, one of the other things that stood out to me was the tracks leading to Auschwitz. I learned a lot about Auschwitz in those days. I've never been there. I've always wanted to visit there. But this painting. So this one actually I did with more color. Why did I use more color for this? Because of a story that a Holocaust survivor told me. Okay, this is actually a picture based on a real picture of Auschwitz in more recent days, not a picture of Auschwitz when there was during the Holocaust. And you can see around the tracks leading up to Auschwitz, there's some green, some grass. And one of the Holocaust survivors who I recently heard speak around the time, this was 2011, I painted this, she said, when you go to Auschwitz today, you get the kind of a wrong impression of what it was like. When they were there, everything was mud and dirt. She said, basically, and this still resonates with me today, she said if there was actually grass in the concentration camps, they would have ate it for food because they were that hungry, and they would have ate anything that was edible. They ate leather from shoes, okay, to somehow get nutrients out of it. So the idea that people go there today and there's trees and grass and other things there, they may misunderstand what it was really like in the days of Auschwitz when there was no green and there was just death and destruction. But you know, again, everything has symbolism. This was also drawn in somewhat of or painted actually, in somewhat of a childlike image with somewhat like a watercolor or a crayon drawing. Next painting here, made in 2013, is, I'll bring it a little closer so you can get a better look, says Haganah Ship, Exodus, 1947. Okay, so this painting is based, again, on a real picture of a ship called the Haganah Ship, Exodus. And in 1947, after the Holocaust and after the war, you know, you would think that the world would have saw what happened and somehow made a change, okay, and they would have learned, you know, from they already knew that millions of people were killed, they were tortured, the gas chambers, they knew everything in 1947, and this ship of survivors, Holocaust survivors, wanted to go to Israel, where they were the only place in the world at the time that really any had just been established, or being established. The only place that Jewish people could have went in the world that they would have not been persecuted, where they could have lived free, where they could have had rights. Okay, the world was still not so nice, even right after the Holocaust occurred, because this ship tried to go to Israel and it wasn't allowed. The people on the ship were sent back and blocked and sent to a displacement camp where they had to basically sit in prison after they had just survived one of the most, or the whatever you want to call it, one of the most brutal attacks on a people, organized people ever. And particularly, you know, in 1947, you would think that people should have been more civilized or somehow learned again a lesson. And now, again, we're here in 2015, okay, and people are forgetting what happened. And they're quickly forgetting. You look at what's going on today. I'm filming this actually on Tisha B'Av, which is a Jewish holiday of mourning for not only the destruction of both Jewish temples that stood in Jerusalem and Israel, but several other things. There were a number of major pogroms that started in Russia and Eastern Europe on this day. There was the Spanish Inquisition that started in Spain. There was several, again, other things around the world, minor, more smaller, but still significant enough, terrible things that happened. So in 1947, they would have learned, but no. They were, again, held back from being free, and even after surviving the concentration camps, still had trouble living and moving on in their life. And just this summer, another painting I started is this one. I'm not sure if I'm done with it yet. I might be done with it. This is